G'day everybody, welcome back to the podcast for another week. My name is Matt Walsh. Jarryd Barca is here, as is Champion Data's Christian Joly, here to talk all things footy for another week. Today we're going to talk 2 draws, that's right, 2 of them in the same week, plus the Dockers' ability to rip games apart from opponents, Christian Petracca's downfall from the first half of the year, Bo McCreary's umpire shove, and a whole lot more. Jarryd, good to speak with you. Something you noticed, please, from round 23.
Oh, good to speak with you as well, Walshy. I think I'm becoming a bit of a rating points guy. 3 weeks in a row, this is what I'm going
Get a new shtick.
It's just easier to do. So if you remember last week, I spoke about Isaac Rankin being the highest rated player on the ground against Richmond, but the second highest rated player was nearly more than 50% worse. So Isaac Rankin was twice as good as the second best player on the ground. It actually happened again this week. I know you went through those numbers last week, Christian, but Ed Richards, obviously the standout player against the Blues yesterday, finished as the highest rated player on the ground with 35.3 rating points. The second best player on the ground was Blake Acres with 17.5. So 2 weeks in a row, we've had a player who was the best player on the ground finish with twice as many, at least, rating points as the second best player on the ground, which shows how good the man with red hair was. He's a good player.
Yeah, so that's the third time the top rated player is at least double the next rated player. So Franklin 2017, round 23, 2017, Lance Franklin did it against Carlton while playing for Sydney, and Max Holmes actually did it round 14 last year for Geelong against North Melbourne, where he was twice as high as Todd Goldstein, who was the second rated player. So,
And now 2 in 2 weeks. Twice in 2 weeks.
There you go.
Crazy stuff. Good stuff. Christian, something from you, please.
Probably North Melbourne, so good start to the game. They're 38 points up at quarter time, North Melbourne, but ended up losing the game. So that's the 7th time this year they've led at quarter time and lost, which is actually only the second most of any team. St Kilda's actually been ahead at quarter time and lost 8 times this year. But it's the 4 games where North's kicked at least 6 goals in the first quarter and lost the game. So yeah, they've done that 4 times this year. Only St Kilda back in 1979, who did that 5 times, have had that happen more in a season. So getting that dominant scoring first quarter going and kicking 6 goals, but not being able to maintain it. So, yeah, something for North. And there is a few articles, I think, being written this week about how just little signs like that show you that North are in for a big improvement next year.
Totally, yeah.
But yeah, it is. It's just stringing together 4 complete quarters of it. And another really, really quick one, James O'Donnell for the Bulldogs yesterday had 17 spoils, which is the second most in a game by a Bulldogs player. But just wanted to put it on watch or on notice. I think he's the best spoiler in the game. I think Tom Barrass might have had that mantle.
Ooh.
This is just an aesthetic thing, not in terms of numbers or anything like that, but I just think James O'Donnell, cleanest, biggest spoiler in the game. So shout out to him. I think he does that skill really, really well. Underrated skill.
Just like the way he punches the footy.
I do. Better than Liam
Good
Puncher.
technique.
Better than Liam Puncher.
Just back on North Melbourne, we spoke earlier in the year on this podcast about Carlton and their ability to sort of not be able to hold a lead, get out in front, and then just give it up. And the question throughout, this podcast, but other parts of the media was, is it a fitness thing? Are they just running out of juice? And we were kind of like, no. I mean, if you're a professional footballer in a professional outfit, you're not going to be that much less fit than your opposition. So when you look at North and something like that, is that more of a composure sort of thing where you just sort of think as a group continues to play together, continues to rack up games together, get more experience, they'll find ways within games to make those changes to sort of alleviate teams coming back at them so hard?
It's exactly that. It's having a plan B and a plan C and a plan D if you need it. So North, I think, at that stage where they plan really strongly during the week, come out with a real focus, and showed us so many times this year that focus will hold them in good stead early in the game. But it's being able to sort of
recognise
pull that lever and go, okay, now we need to sort of take the heat out of the game or go slower and things like that. And that's, if you're using Carlton as an example, especially under Josh Fraser, I think that's the one thing you notice is the embracing of the uncontested game style when it needs to be. It's probably come to the forefront of the major way they play, but especially when the game starts to get a bit tighter or getting closer in the last quarter, they're able to slow the game down and take those uncontested marks. It's something probably North Melbourne will have to bring in the off-season of, as I said, just having those different levers you can pull in different plans once the game is going your way. If it starts to come back to the other team's way, being able to, stop that as quickly as possible.
Interesting. Something I noticed, 7,345. So not the number of hot dogs they sold on Saturday afternoon, not the number of steps I did yesterday. That was the attendance on Sunday between GWS and West Coast at NG Stadium. 19th lowest home crowd in their history, and that's excluding the COVID years. The 12th lowest they've ever had at NG. It's their 15th year in the competition. They've had stars come through the doors at GWS throughout their existence. And that was potentially Toby Green's home farewell as well. I don't know. Spare me the lack of stake stuff with playing West Coast and not being able to make finals, but that's abysmal, isn't it, Jarryd?
Free tickets as well, don't they?
I reckon I've seen, and we looked at this in the office, I've seen at least 5 or 6 home games at NG Stadium where you could go to promotix.com.au or whatever the website is, and they were offering up to 4 free tickets to Giants games, and you just had to pay the booking fee, which is $7.95 or something like that.
Exy booking fee, by the way. But how many?
We'll get the watchdog onto it.
How many of the 7,000 do you reckon used free tickets?
How many of the 7,000 were actually there? It looked a bit grim. I know that there are more on the members' side on the broadcast where the cameras are, but I'm watching that on Sunday thinking there can't possibly be that many there, and it's just. I know it's the last home game of the year, but
what would have been a pass mark though for them?
I think
West Coast round 23. Wildcard wasn't fully out of the equation, but
a club that's had a lot of investment and money and put into that sort of part of Sydney, playing at home in the 15th year in the club's existence, more than 7,345.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a little bit worried.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so what do you think they do from here with the whole rebrand thing that's going to
I've got a lot of opinions on this. We don't have time to get into them on this podcast, but I think one of the biggest scourges in Australian sport, this isn't just AFL, this is soccer, this is basketball, is trying to capture too much of a geographic area.
Yeah.
When you probably just need to focus a little bit more, build a bit of a brand identity. Greater Western Sydney Giants. Who's ever sort of referred to being from Greater Western Sydney? The Southeast Melbourne Phoenix in the NBL. I'm just not quite sure that...
Broaden yourself as the Giants and play out of the SCG if you can.
Is that your...
Yeah.
At Footy Tips and ESPN Footy on Instagram, let us know what you think. But, I don't know, that crowd, that's not good. 13th lowest in their history. Potentially Toby Green's home farewell.
It's not ideal, but I mean, maybe they just don't. Maybe they don't have that many fans, and that's actually a good turnout.
Don't disagree. We had 2 draws in round 23. 2. Hawthorn and Collingwood on Saturday night, then the Western Bulldogs and Carlton on Sunday. So back-to-back days. First time since 1977 we've had multiple in the same round. But also the first time in VFL, AFL history that the same 2 teams have drawn twice in the one season. So you'll remember earlier in the year, Collingwood and Hawthorn drew... I think it was round 8 or something like that and it was the same person.
Player.
Dylan Moore was lining up for a shot, well, after the siren in the first instance, and he kicked it to draw level with Collingwood, but had a kick during, or as the siren was going on Saturday night. And the score was very close too. So it was 92 each this time around and 93 each earlier in the year. The parallels were just bizarre, Christian. I'm sure your group chats or your team's messages within the champion data offices would have been going off.
I think you've captured it probably all there. I mean, looking at the way the 2 games played out, were very, very differing styles.
Yes.
In terms of, basically in the first game this year, the ball lived down Hawthorn's end of the field and Collingwood probably scrounged together a draw. If you have a look at this game, Collingwood won the inside 50 count by +13, so it was probably Hawthorn that were the ones that were lucky to come away with a draw in terms of from the territory. But no, it was straight on to, when's the last time 2 teams have had the draw in the same season and the same player has had the same kick at the end of the game, which was very quickly brought back to, 0 times that's happened before this. So, but it was the Dylan Moore being involved both times was just, capped it all off.
JB, you were there. I would describe it as a very scrappy last couple of minutes. It's very funny. As soon as the scores are level and someone's looking for a way to go, you obviously don't want to concede, but you are trying to score too. And some of the panic that just sort of set in was very funny.
Yeah, well, you had Lloyd Meek not looking the right way, had a handball go his way, then he handballed it out of bounds, and then Ed Allen, who had a pretty good game to that point, turned it over blatantly straight to the chest of Jarman Impey. So it was error-laden, the finish, but an exciting game nonetheless. I thought it was one of the better games of the season for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the Pies kind of gave up the first 3 goals in the fourth quarter, I think, and you kind of think...
They got 20-odd points down.
Yeah, that might be curtains, and then they just sort of came back and went bang, bang, bang. But it was funny watching the reactions on the siren. So Hawthorn fans, Hawthorn players had heads in hands and they were sort of looking upset. All the Collingwood players were coming together, high-fiving, celebrating, fans were clapping, and then you saw Craig McRae come out on the ground and start geeing up the crowd. But it kind of looked like when Windows 95 came out and the Microsoft executives were trying to pump up the crowd when they walked on stage. It just didn't work. It looked very bizarre. But yeah, he was really happy. And I think it was because, JB, and we've talked on this podcast a fair bit about how old and experienced Collingwood has been throughout the year. Last couple of years, they've fielded the oldest team and beaten it week after week in 2025 and early parts of this year. They played the youth. and they were instrumental in helping to get the result of a draw in this instance.
Yeah, I think part of the celebrating on the field from the players was the fact that they actually salvaged a draw out of something that they couldn't control because Hawthorn were having the last shot on goal. It was almost like just a pat on the back of Sam Swaddling for what he did to actually keep the ball back in play. Then Craig McRae, I think that they've really lived a act like winners mantra. That mentality. I think they lost the qualifying final against Geelong. They were sort of on the ground. He came out in that presser and said they want to act like winners and not do that. So I think that's where his celebrations come from. But you did mention it there, like the conversations about their list profile is real and fair enough. It's not that they never had young players, it's that they weren't playing any young players, so we didn't even see them. They weren't exposed at the level, so we had nothing to judge. But at least now, even though it's a lot of it's forced because they have a lot of injuries, at least we now are seeing the young players that Collingwood do have on their list. And some of them look pretty good. I know you've got some numbers here as well, but they're showing some pretty good signs. I don't know how much of it is them or the system that they're now playing in this back half of the year where it doesn't really matter who's out there for them. They know what role that they need to play. So they're very well drilled and well coached, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
I think that's a major part of it. So looking at the guys, so if you go young, we'll go 24 years, at the age 24 years at the end of the year or younger. They've got 12 guys this season that have played in that age group. 10 of them were playing on the weekend. So of the 12, Oscar Steen and Will Parker were the only two that weren't there on the weekend. But reeling off the names, it's Nick Dacos, who's still only 23, Sam Swaddling, who's the only teenager of the group. But Will Hayes, Angus Anderson, Edward Allen, Ned Long, Noah Howes, Charlie West, Harvey Harrison and Liam Puncher all coming in there. So guys like Liam Puncher, Ned Long, even Angus Anderson, they're 23, so their games and their age don't sort of line up to usual, 10 games in, you're an 18-year-old, so they've got more experienced bodies. But I think it's that. I think it's the roles that they play, and there's none of these guys, maybe Ned Long and Ed Allen are gone in as centre-bounce midfielders, but there's wingers and half-forward flankers and half-back flankers, are these complementary players, so they're still relying on their main, Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos.
Darcy Cameron.
Yeah, Darcy Cameron is their main ruckman, but it's just being able to fill in these spots on the wings, on the half forward and half back. And it is, I keep looking at it most weeks and keep coming back to Craig McRae is a great coach in terms of he gets the best out of all the players that he needs to play. Yeah, sometimes they're a bit, maybe a bit hard, very hard for the young players to get selected. So they always go back to the same well and keep selecting the older players. But when he's had to throw these guys in, I think most weeks you look at him and go, he was actually all right today. He was actually okay today. So we use relative ratings as a way to compare you and in your age to the position you're playing with everyone else at the same age in that position since 2010. And if you have a look at the way they've performed this year, there's only two guys on that list that I just went through that are in the positive for relative rating. So Nick Dacos is 52% better than a 23-year-old midfielder should be, and Sam Swaddling is 25% better than a 19-year-old winger should be. All the rest are under, but I think it's more the guys that are under, like Angus Anderson, Edward Allen, even Ned Long, Charlie West, Harvey Harrison, they've all produced something this year where you've seen them and gone, they belong at AFL level. Like even Harvey Harrison on the weekend, his second and third quarters were great. Ed Allen probably had one of his better games on the weekend as well. So while they might not be in the positive across the whole season, I think you can take certain games where they have been called upon to play a bigger role than usual, and all of them, I think, have stood up in their own individual way.
There's certain aspects of the first, however handful many games you want to play where you are just finding your feet at the level. And yeah, these guys are this 22, 21, potentially 23, and having only played a handful of games. So it is going to take a little bit of time to actually find your feet at the level. But I think what Fly was in the press conference sort of talking about was 5 under 10 games in this, and they all contributed really. So going into the clash, Will Hayes, so he's now played 10, but was 9 at the time. Charlie West now played 8, Puncher 7, Swaddling 7, and Howes 2. And all of them just seem to have little moments that sort of added up to helping the Pies win.
Yeah, and I think they'll all have confidence about getting these games under their belts as well. In big games as well against Hawthorn, 80,000 at the MCG. It's a good experience for them, obviously. That's going to hold them in good stead. Sam Swaddling's the one that I think has a lot of really good traits. I reckon.
Put your reputation on the line.
I reckon. Nah.
What did you call him earlier in the office?
Just a good young player. But no, I think the easiest decision Collingwood can make in this off-season is to, maybe it's side bottom's call, but giving Sam Swaddling the number 22. That is as big a side bottom clone as I've seen come through Collingwood. The way he can kick it on both feet. You don't see young kids generally do that these days as confidently as I have seen him do. The way he can use his left as confidently as it's his right. He has a lot of composure. He's very classy, got really good skill, and isn't afraid to take risks. So I reckon he's going to be a very good player. I'd be surprised if he plays much more VFL than he already has now.
2 goals, I think it was 29 disposals, and that clutch sort of heads-up play to make sure the ball didn't go across the line. Not a bad.
Should the Hawks have done better there? They had Lloyd Meek, Marbior Chol, and Mitch Lewis on the goal line.
Well, there's been a bit of confusion about
and the smallest kid
this.
there in Sam Swaddling is the one that punched it back through.
That's the weird part. But there was a bit of confusion about what the Hawks could do on the goal line because, as it turns out, Christian, they're not actually allowed to punch it over and it count as a behind and they'd win the match.
No, so you can't. The attacking team can't forcibly punch the ball or force the ball through once it's kicked from a teammate after the siren. So
even though he kicked it and then the siren started going?
Yeah, still after, but the spoil or the
next
touch,
act.
Yeah, the next act would have been after the siren, so that's too late for it to happen. So the opposition can touch the ball, and that will still count to wherever the ball lands after that touch. But yeah, you can't do it as the attacking team. But just the way it's worded still has me querying one aspect of the rule, which didn't happen.
Oh, there's grey area.
The way it's worded is the attacking team cannot force or assist the ball through for a behind. If that happens, then the play will be cancelled and you know the kick will not count or the score will not count. But I want to know, is it if just the attacking team touches the ball? So if we had seen an instance of Sam Swaddling spoiling the ball, it hits Lloyd Meek in the back of the head and then goes through for a Hawthorn behind, I don't know if that would have counted. And I know it's a very grey area, but on Saturday night, as soon as the game finished, I was under the assumption that that wouldn't count. As soon as it touches an offensive player, it's game over.
Yeah.
The way it's worded, though, it doesn't seem to say an opposition player can't touch the ball. It just says they can't forcibly assist the ball going through.
The attacking player isn't allowed to intentionally change the direction.
Yeah, but I think it should
foot.
just be an attacking player shouldn't be able to touch the ball. I think that makes it more black and white. But it's an interesting one. But yeah, I couldn't believe there was a little bit of confusion. I thought it was pretty obvious that if you're kicking the ball off the
Broadcasters,
siren,
I wasn't
Hawthorn
sure.
players can't just ball
It's because it never happened, so you don't look at these
know.
rules, and now we're like, oh, hang on a second.
The subclause of
fine tune that.
33.1.A or whatever it is.
But you're right. The one thing they should have done if they were onto it is you've just got to make a line on the line and make sure
Bulldoze,
it's blocked off.
yeah.
No Collingwood player who's going to jump and spoil this ball. So,
But also-
how much can you get away with?
You'd have to be a brave
blocking?
umpire to pay an illegal block on the
Hang on,
line.
who's to say that Marbior doesn't go up pretending he's going to mark it and then just like volleyball it over the line? Like who? Like how do you?
But isn't that the last
That's
touch, right?
Yeah, but how do
Should have
you?
been-
Yeah, but how do
yeah.
you prove that it wasn't just?
Off hands.
Yeah,
Accidental.
accidental.
Yeah. That's why I think it should
And
be
no-
as clear as Hawthorn can't.
They
touch
could
the
have.
ball.
I reckon they could have punched it through. No umpire is blowing the whistle and putting themselves in that situation.
Really quickly, I know we've talked about the last couple of weeks and some of these names that have now played a handful of games, but overall, the theme has remained that Collingwood games from their 24 or unders this year have been well below every other team.
Yeah, it has been. So they've had 127 total games from guys aged 24 or under this year, which is 16 fewer than any other team, which is Sydney at 143. And if you want to look at, bottom, Carlton's probably a bit surprising as well at 148. A lot's been made about how Fraser's turned to the youth and a lot more kids have been playing the second half of the year. It's probably a little bit of a fallacy. I mean, they've changed the team up a little bit, but only third fewest games of 24-year-olds and under, and Brisbane's fourth lowest. So you can see Sydney and Brisbane, obviously, we know where they're at, higher on the ladder, and Collingwood and Carlton are probably still in the midst of sort of slowly turning their list over.
Yep.
The other end of the scale, Richmond obviously the most, 265, West Coast second most, 256, equal with Gold Coast and at 256, and Melbourne at 253. So sort of a little bit of a positive one on Gold Coast of, yes, shocking season, but they've got a lot of kids into the youngsters. But then you go one rung down and go, well, how did Melbourne, who have put 253 games in 24-year-olds, and look at where they are on the ladder?
Yeah.
So as Gold Coast, you'd be looking at that going, well, surely coming off 2025 will probably even, if not ahead of where Melbourne were. We've both played the same amount of games into kids this year, but Melbourne have done what they've done, and Gold Coast have been
Gold Coast, it's a fascinating situation where they have, over the last 3 or 4 years in particular, really benefited at the draft with their academy. And so you have these young 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who want to be playing footy and have come through the academy system. You know, Zeke Euland, there's, what was his name? Leo Lombard. Yeah, so there are these guys that are coming through that are sort of like demanding selection. You feel almost obligated to play them, but it obviously brings down the average and it puts up the number of games from 24 unders.
I reckon, so the 6 clubs at the bottom there, Geelong, Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, Carlton, Sydney, Collingwood, I'm pretty certain I'm only looking at this for the first time. I'm pretty certain they're 6 of the 7 oldest teams in the competition as well.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise.
I'm pretty sure Melbourne's the 7th in that they make up the
because
the
it's
7th
got,
team.
yeah,
but
heavily
the
weighted
guys like
on the other
Lever
end.
and Melksham and Gordon. At the other end,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Blues secured a wild card. I just can't believe I'm actually saying that. They secured a wild card berth, which, depending on who you ask, but if you ask the AFL, that's finals.
It shouldn't be called finals, but
With a thrilling draw with the Dogs on Sunday, the best type of draw, really. I know that sometimes it feels like, what is it, dancing with your sister, with Kevin Sheedy
what do you
called
mean
it?
by that? Best type of draw.
Well, it's secured finals for them,
yeah, but a draw's a draw, right?
but it won them into finals.
Yeah, sure, but yeah, go on, just keep going.
Yeah, best type of draw because, is actually a result for you in terms of the season, which is great. What did you make? And we talked about how the last couple of minutes of Hawthorn Collingwood where it was sort of frantic and both teams trying to win and then not concede and it was up and back a bit. What did you make of the players, especially from Carlton's end, switching from, holy crap, we've got to win this, to all of a sudden, no, we just need to protect this?
Yeah, that was interesting. And I think actually it reminds me of the debates we have every season about should there be extra time, should we keep the draw? And what Carlton did is actually one of the reasons why I think we should never have extra time and we should keep the draw in season, because with the safety net of a draw is enough or we're going to go to extra time anyway, that takes away from the thrilling finish because now a team isn't trying to win the game. It's exactly what Carlton were doing.
Yeah.
Just as a little side bit to the whole conversation. I thought it was really interesting though. Do you reckon the players would have known going into the game that a draw was enough? I don't reckon a draw would be necessarily spoken about.
It's such a rare occurrence, but I feel like it's something you'd have to tick off. But you looked at what happened on the ground when the siren went. You had Jagger Smith sort of celebrating, and Sam Walsh and those sort of lip readers among us might have sort of concluded that he'd sort of said, is that finals? Or something very similar.
I didn't see that.
And so he wasn't celebrating until he sort of realised, which makes me kind of think, well, maybe he didn't know.
So some of them would have understood why they were slowing down, some wouldn't.
Well, he said after the game that he looked over to the bench and he saw the sign that the club holds up when it's protect the game mode. And so clearly someone obviously was just like, well, we've got to protect the game, and players, they just sort of see that and they go, all right, we got to do this, which makes a lot of sense. But Christian, I'll get back to my earlier point. They're in September. After a 1-8, well, actually,
They're in August.
They're in finals after a 1-8 start, which has been mentioned a lot, but just understanding it, is there any context from a statistical standpoint that tells us just how rare this is?
Well, yeah, so before this year, if we take out, there was 3 teams this year that were at 1-8. So it was Essendon, Richmond and Carlton all set at 1-8. But before this year, there was 26 teams that had gone 1-8 since 99 onwards, and none of them had finished higher than 14th. So you are what you are after, that's usually 9 or 10 rounds in, depending if we've had buys.
Yeah.
So Richmond and Essendon aren't going to break that. They're going to be 17th and 18th respectively this season. But Carlton have already, moved up to 10th so far, and as you said, made finals in this extended final series. So first team ever to make finals after starting the season 1-8, but just even the first team to finish higher than 14th.
And that's in Champion Data's history, first time ever.
99,
yeah.
99.
The Dogs were very plucky given the outs they had. A lot was made of Tim English being, basically done for the season, Marcus Bontempelli being out as well. They forced the Blues to almost be too uncontested at times, it seemed, Christian. We've talked about Carlton's ability to use the ball, take uncontested marks and pick apart opponents, but the Dogs really made it hard for them.
Yeah, so I think it's the Dogs' ability to flood back and just take away all your options of going forward. So Carlton finished with 456 disposals for the game, which is their second most ever as a club, but gained 12.9 metres for every disposal, which is the lowest of any team this year, the fewest for Carlton in a game since 2018.
It's not even a legal kick.
Exactly. So that's, handballs and all that sort of stuff. So of course, if you kick the ball 20 metres backwards, that's negative 20 metres, going to bring your average down, etc., etc. So definitely there was when we look at the speed of ball movement, we have that number which measures aggressiveness, which measures basically where you are with the ball and how direct you kick towards the goal.
So it's not pace, it's direction of the foot.
Yeah. So
the 100 being the average?
100 being the average, 100 meaning that from every possession that you're getting, you're going towards goal as often as everyone else does from that same position. Carlton's aggressiveness rating against the Bulldogs was 59.5, which was Carlton's least aggressive game this year and the third least of any side. So that means for all those 456 disposals, most of those disposals were going sideways or backwards half the time, and that's trying to handball out of pressure or kick around to try to get that switch. So it was, and it's been the Bulldogs' MO this year. They've allowed the lowest aggressiveness rating of any side this season. We're the 5th lowest last year, the 6th lowest in 2024. So something they've always done well, but I think they've brought it more to the fore this year. Maybe because of personnel, but I feel like they've almost brought back the old style flooding, which Bulldogs made famous under Terry Wallace, I think, in the early 2000s. But it's almost, if you look at the Bulldogs and the way they set up their wingers almost from the start of the game, their wingers are going right to the half-back line and sort of standing there. So they're almost showing the defensive hand straight away, saying, we're going to defend first and we're going to get you from the back half. So this year for them as well, 17th for forward half intercepts for the Bulldogs. So definitely one of those teams that want to stack all the numbers behind the ball. And that's what sort of allowed Carlton. Carlton could maintain possession of the ball, but couldn't get any sort of traction and as we said, aggressiveness or sort of that really damaging ball movement into the forward 50 just wasn't there for them across the match.
Well, it almost worked for the Dogs. They tried it against the Dockers as well, in Perth a couple of weeks ago when they just wanted to kind of choke things off, and it took the Dockers a good half to get going. I mean, the Blues, they couldn't get over the Bulldogs. They actually ended up level. Fascinating that the Dogs were sort of able to almost sort of undo a lot of the Blues' good work and force them to go to the next game of the season.
Yeah, well, we looked at their 2 profiles a couple of weeks back on this podcast. Do you still not trust the Bulldogs?
Yeah,
and do you trust Carlton going into wildcard, these 2 teams?
I think so. I think the profiles, I remember looking at Bulldogs North Melbourne before they played a couple of weeks ago.
You called that
North
up.
Melbourne, North Melbourne had the better profile there. And same with Carlton Bulldogs. If you sort of go to blind Carlton especially under Fraser versus Bulldogs and look at if you're looking at Freo and Sydney as the benchmark of who's sort of mirroring their ways of playing, it's definitely Carlton over the Bulldogs because, to me, Bulldogs are playing with like a side that don't expect to win games. The way they're flooding back, the really low forward half intercepts, they're in conservative mode, which is so unusual for a team that is sitting high. They were higher on the ladder than Carlton coming into the game. They're going to play finals. They've been almost had their finals booked really 3 or 4 weeks ago, probably, that you knew they were going to play. But they're sort of not playing with their own style. They're sort of very receptive to what the opposition wants to do first and then planning from there. So it's an unusual spot the Bulldogs have been in. Looking at their profile, I don't have much trust on them to do much damage in the finals. But what I will say is we looked at their double-ups in games this year, and it's just, I think the way they're playing doesn't necessarily mean they're not, they're unlucky to be where they are because of the fixture they've had. But their double-ups this year were Sydney, Fremantle, Carlton, but Carlton were both when they had Fraser. I think it was Adelaide and I think it was either Hawthorn or Geelong's the other one. So you have a look at, they got Freo and they got Sydney and Carlton because they were both in the middle parts of the ladder last year, but they've both come up. And Sydney as well. So
that's just luck, right?
That's just the unlucky or the luckiness of the fixture. So they've had a really hard draw, the Bulldogs. So to sit where they are, they've had a pretty good season.
And the injuries.
Just as I said, the style of game that they're playing, where they're winning their intercepts and how they're setting up, just doesn't seem like a team that's got full confidence in the ability to overrun and outscore their opposition.
So it's not even the fact that Tim English wasn't there. They knew Marcus Bontempelli wasn't there, so they played a certain way to try not to lose heavily.
No, they've probably been playing this way for 5 or 6 weeks now.
Both of you, maybe just a word on Josh Fraser. So breaking as we're actually going to record this is that he's been announced as Carlton coach.
I knew that was going to happen.
Will be confirmed by the club as early as tomorrow, but there are multiple reports confirming that Fraser will be coach.
Yeah, it had to happen, and I think it would have been silly to wait. I think you announce it now while they're playing like this, while they've locked in and secured wildcard. This gives them the right boost going into not only the last round, but the wildcard rounds as well. I think it's the perfect timing for them.
Any thoughts, Christian?
No, I agree, the timing, couldn't have been better.
Just about everyone has noticed Christian Petracca's drop-off over the last month or so, but really over the second half of the year. His coach in particular in the press conference after the loss to the Lions was basically taking blame for his quiet patch, saying, I've got to find out how I can best use him, and that's for me to figure out. So Track's last 3 games, 12 disposals, 14 disposals and 16 disposals. He hasn't kicked a goal for a month, which is kind of part of his appeal, right? As a mid that can push forward and kick goals into the scoreboard. He hasn't done that. I just wonder how big the drop-off has been, because I remember early in the year, maybe through 3 or 4 weeks, we were looking at him going, he's going to do an Aaron Hall and have 9 votes through 3 games and potentially be a Brownlow contender.
Yeah, he was definitely tracking to, recruit of the year and, miles ahead of anybody else. So I've actually gone to round 16, probably where the drop-off started. So from round 0 to 15, he was the 3rd highest rated player in the competition. From round 16 onwards, he's been 181st rated, so on AFL ratings plays. And you look at the time in position, that's when it's changed as well. So Round 0 to 15 played 66% midfield, 34% forward. Since round 16 onwards, that's flipped to 37% midfield, 63% forward. So I think that's the Hardwick part of the role. Hardwick has clearly changed his role up, put him forward ahead of the ball. But yeah, it's hurt him on all facets of the game. So rating points gone from 18.8 per game down to 8.9. Wow. Disposals have dropped from 26 down to 19 per game. Inside 50s 5 down to 3. Clearances 6 down to 4. Score involvements 8 down to 5, and even his tackles 3, was 2.8 per game down to 1.5, so almost half of his tackles. But it's just all numbers. But that usually means midfield time. If your midfield time decreases, so will these numbers. But
if you've been playing forward and hasn't hit the scoreboard,
goals, score involvement, score assist, none of those have risen with the forward line time. So.
Just a bit of discontent, it seems, at the Suns and the way that they're finishing this year. I think a good off-season will do them well. Maybe just being able to tweak some ideas of how they use him best. I think he's still best as how he was in round 0 to 15 when he was the 3rd-rated player.
Well, they wanted to change something out of their midfield because...
Not him.
Holistically, their midfield was getting beaten, but
it
doesn't mean he was performing poorly. If you want to get the best out of him, obviously he should be a mid-forward instead of a forward mid.
And it's that centre-bounce setup of Rowell, Anderson, Petracca, which they didn't get a chance to use them in the first part of the year because of injuries and one of them being out. But when they've all seemed to play, they've seemed to be reluctant to put them all in the centre-bounce, getting rid of Petracca, putting Miller in there.
Yeah.
Putting Humphrey in there a few times as well, so experimenting. But I think, with the 3 midfielders, Rowell, Anderson, Petracca, it's almost like they don't work all together in there at the same time.
That's very stark, though. 3rd-rated player down to 181. First half of the year, sort of second half of the year. Have there been any other sort of big drop-offs when you look at sort of first half versus second half this year?
Yeah, so with Petracca, I use round 16 onwards because we're talking specifically about him and that's when I could see the drop-off. But if we just go holistically and just have a look at, all right, round 0 to 12 versus round 13 onwards and who's come dropped off the biggest or improved the most in that time. So the biggest drop-offs in the second half of the season, I've seen Aaron Norton. So wasn't massive. I mean, he was 123rd in the competition from round 0 to 12 and probably only the 10th highest key forward, but he's dropped down to 342nd in the competition. So dropped 219 places, biggest drop-off of any player. Second biggest drop-off is Jack Higgins, so very similar to Aaron Norton, playing forward in a team that's just starting to struggle to sort of kick a winning score in recent weeks. James Peatling for Adelaide's been the 3rd biggest drop-off. I think he really stood up in the midfield while Isaac Rankin was out and a few others. Probably more been... more of opportunity and positional play for James Peatling that he's dropped off. He's dropped from 84th best player in the competition down to 283rd. Vin O'Sullivan for North Melbourne, probably similar, 47th highest rated player from round 0 to 12. Then they sort of turned him into a tagger in some of those weeks and sort of been released from that role recently, but 243rd since round 13 onwards, has dropped 196 spots. And probably another one that's a big one is Archie Roberts. So he's dropped 192 spots, 132nd ranked in the first 12 rounds of the season down to outside the top 300 now. So he's probably one that most people that have looked at Essendon for most of the year said Archie Roberts would be a walk-up winner for their run.
Copped a shoulder injury at one stage as
BNF.
well.
But yeah, I think it just shows that, I think people that put a lot of context in the first half of the season go, oh, he's a runaway winner for their BNF, but he sort of hasn't been there for the second half of the season. And someone we spoke about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Willem Dersma, who we spoke about in the NAB Rising Star race, he just hasn't been able to keep it up second half of the season. So from 100, just outside the top 125 players in the competition from around 0 to 12, down to 319th now. So a few drop-offs there. The guys that have come up, Paddy Voss.
Let's flip it. So those that maybe didn't have the best start and are now sort of coming home with a wet sail, are there some names that really stand out there?
Yeah, Paddy Voss. So he started the season round 0 to 12, 352nd, come up to 106th since round 13. So he's been the biggest jumper.
Is he not kicking more goals in the first half of the season than he
is? Yeah, so that's the interesting one for me is he's actually having more impact without having to increase his skill. It's probably been Amos and Tracy that have kicked most of the goals. Francis Evans for Carlton has gone from 300th ranked player from round 0 to 12 up to 65th.
He's 65th best player in the second half of the year.
Onwards, so that's a lot of his efficiency in the forward half of the ground, which rating points loves. Stephen Canelio is another one.
He's hit the scoreboard.
Bit of a renaissance in his career, 288th in the first 12 rounds up to 60th. Logan Morris for Brisbane.
Yep. A lot of forwards here.
Yep, has a big one. Harrison Petty for Melbourne.
Forwards in both lists. It's a bit of a live by the sword, die by the sword.
Jacob Van Rooyen. Dan McStay is a big one. So he's gone from 212th rated from round 0 to 12. And this might surprise people. From round 13 onwards, he's the 19th highest rated player in the competition. Which is a jump for him for 193 spots. But I mean, the simple way to look at it, and you speak about forwards, and it is accuracy will really either hurt you or help you. Dan McStay's kicked 23 goals, 6 since round 13 onwards, which is a big part of why he's rating so highly. And Lloyd Meeks also on this list, gone from 268th for the first half of the year, where we thought the centre bounce rule might have almost limited what he could do. He's now up to the 76th highest rated player, and I think in the top 6 or 7 ruckman in that time as well. So he's someone that's sort of been able to either readjust his game or sort of get going with the new rule, and actually hasn't, been impacted.
Does that correlate with Ned Reeves going out of the side as well?
I think
they're playing both of them.
I think a little bit, and I think that was. I mean, I know Ned Reeves is injured, but I think it was because Ned Reeves was such a better centre bounce ruckman. He was forcing his way into the team. I think now, Joly sort of gives a bit of a chop out in there. But Lloyd Meeks been good.
You've left one name off there. There's just one name left on that list.
Will Ashcroft has gone from 200th.
Wasn't forward.
Getting closer to superstar level every single day, Jake. He's now 11th highest rated player from round 13 onwards. So jumped
just
up
outside the top 10.
Players. Yeah, it's from round 13.
Well, JB, you can do a bit of a spoiler alert. He is going to make our All-Australian team.
Is he? Well, he's in there right now. We've got 1 week.
Well, he's not coming out, is he?
Oh, I wouldn't say so. Do you want him to go out of the team?
No, he's in.
Then he's staying in.
Excellent second half of the year. I mean, it wasn't awful early, but just has come from where he was to where he is now. Had a really good second half.
His second half of the season, his numbers have been huge. Yeah.
Fremantle on Friday night just played beautifully to secure the minor premiership in those lovely retro throwback kind of anchors with the green and the red and the purple. You don't.
It was really nostalgic, and I liked to see that, but I don't think the predominant green with the purple shorts actually worked well.
Needed green shorts.
White shorts would have been really cool.
White shorts would have been good.
Home team, it doesn't really make sense. No, I just don't. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction with how much people say they love it. I don't think those 3 colours work together. It was nostalgic and good to see it though, however.
Anyway, it doesn't matter what they were wearing. They got the win. So 4-goal win over Adelaide. I describe it as professional. A really nice way to sort of wrap up the minor premiership. Christian, I sort of asked you to look into the theory I've had about them, which is just back-to-back goals, having a knack of putting teams to the sword quickly, especially seems to happen at Optus Stadium a fair bit. Late in the first term, they kicked 4 quickly to kind of erase Adelaide's good early work. And then they had back-to-back goals a minute apart late in the third and midway through the fourth, which just sort of put things out of reach. So it must be absolutely demoralising when you're looking good against the potential minor premiers, maybe looking to upset them on the road, and then they just go and go bang, bang. It's happened a few times this year. Has there been anything in the numbers that suggests they come in waves?
Yeah, so to get sort of them as leaders, we've looked at teams to kick 5 goals in a 10-minute patch in a game. So, and that's not cross-quarter. So even though Freo didn't do that this week against Adelaide, they've done it 5 times this year. So 5 times this year in a 10-minute patch, they've kicked 5 goals. That's the most by any team in a single home and away season since GWS back in 2016.
And these aren't bad teams they're doing it against. So round 2, quarter 1, they did it against Melbourne. Round 12, quarter 3, they did it against Brisbane. Round 13, quarter 2, they did it against North Melbourne. Round 18, quarter 4 against Sydney. And then round 19, quarter 3 against Port Adelaide, maybe the poorest of those teams. But doesn't even include when they tore Hawthorn apart in about 4 minutes. I don't think they kicked 5 goals in that. I think they might have kicked 4.
Yeah, it might have been 3 or 4 in that time. And same as in the Adelaide game, they never kicked more than 4 goals in a row. So that was another stat I sort of looked at. Again, didn't happen on the weekend, but something we've seen all year. They've had 11 times where they've kicked at least 6 goals in a row, which is the equal most of Hawthorn. But they've only conceded 6 goals to the opposition 2 times this year, which only one other team's below them with 1 conceded. But yeah, the ability to sort of get a run on, but also to stop the other team from really getting a true meaningful run on has been.
Were they losses when they did concede those run-ons?
I'd have to double check that. Yeah.
JB, we were talking in the office earlier and upstairs. Undefeated at home throughout the season.
Yeah.
By the way that kind of extrapolates to being in finals, a pass mark now for them has to be they have to make the grand final.
Yes, respectfully, yes. I don't want to put that pressure on the club, but it is a fail if they don't reach a grand final because of what they have achieved and how dominant they have been, and the fact that they're
especially at home
got clearly the best profile in the competition. You finish on top, you get a home qualifying final, you win that, you get a home prelim. The path to the grand final is clearer for Fremantle than it is for any other team right now. That's not to say it's a fait accompli. Obviously, a lot can still go wrong, and teams that finish on top actually often don't win the premiership. It actually rarely happens, and we see last year with Adelaide, they bound in straight sets, so it doesn't always happen. But I think
Freo's a better side than
they are better. I think, I would say it's a fail if they don't reach a grand final. But again, it doesn't mean, Sydney could be just as formidable with the home qualifying final and a home prelim. Who knows what to expect of Brisbane should they be their opponents as well.
He's written them off. The defensive profile's not good enough.
But it shouldn't shock to see them win a qualifying final away from home Brisbane as well. So you just don't know what's going to happen. So even though I do say, it's a fail if they don't reach a grand final, that doesn't mean they don't take something away from the season, from where they've come from as a young team who I think are going to contend for quite a while from here.
Fair enough.
Is it?
Yeah.
You sound like you disagree.
No, I'm just sort of playing through it in my head. I think it would be a disappointment for where they are now.
Disappointment.
Yeah, major disappointment.
Yeah.
Probably,
I'm not saying
a tough word.
Like going into the season, their pass mark wasn't make a grand final.
No, it wasn't. But
now it should be.
Yes, on the eve of
Because of the
finals.
path, yeah.
You look at the year that they've had, the win-loss record they have, the win-loss record at Optus that they have.
Yes.
And they shouldn't have to leave that venue until grand final day.
Healthy list as well.
Well, except for Marble this week against Carlton. Just one of these stats that sort of stood out to me, Christian. They've won the second halves by an average of 21.5 points this season, which is the best second half team since Hawthorn in 2015. It's the sixth best team ever since 1999. So they are just doing everything so well and so professionally that, I don't know, to be destabilised now would be a major shock.
Yeah, it would. How many teams can get on runs like Freo can with these goal runs that you just spoke about in grand finals? I know you haven't looked at this and this is a question.
Finals is a different beast.
Yeah,
Grand finals are a different beast.
That's the thing, right? And you've got to win the granny at the MCG.
Yeah.
If they come up against a Geelong or a Hawthorn, it's going to be pretty tough.
Big watch on the Dockers. Anything else for Freo before you move on?
No, we could spend all day on them, and just in terms of, but we've spoken about it in the office. They're number one for scoring from a chain, number one for defending scores from a chain. Best team at scoring per inside 50. Have dropped to second for stopping the score per inside 50, but you've never seen a profile so evenly, like 1-1-1-1 in terms of scores from turnovers, scores from clearances, ability to score from your forward 50, and ability to defend your defensive 50. So we basically said, looking at the numbers, the only thing that can stop Freo from winning is the occasion. And it's sort of like there's no sort of way where you go, in terms of game style, there's sort of no thing that you should be, sort of no weakness in the game that you should be exploiting as a team. You just got to go in there and try your best. But it's all going to be how do they handle the occasion of one, preliminary final week at home, but then two, if it's a grand final at the MCG.
I'm putting that to Coxie on Wednesday. Champion data think you can't handle the occasion.
That's not what we
That's
said.
not what we said.
Don't let the truth get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, the last time, 2013, they did not handle the occasion well at all. And that was a very mature team at that point as well. I mean, some of the stars, veterans of many years.
They hadn't had a lot of finals experience, but exactly.
Very
It was an
inaccurate.
older-
Very
they were very
inaccurate
inaccurate.
that day as well.
Yeah.
Pretty stiff.
Freo, massive watch. Hey, speaking of the premiership pie, I saw first cracks last night. And David King, great champion data man, he gave Brisbane, I think it was a 1% chance of winning the flag because of their defensive profile and what champion data says. How have they been? I mean, this is sort of throwing you under the bus a little bit, but have they been a little bit better since we talked about them a couple of weeks ago? Some of the comments on our YouTube have been saying, hey, you're backpedaling about the Lions a bit, but hey, at the time, this is what the stats look like.
We never said they were bad offensively.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
But the defensive
which is where
profile
they
was
tell.
just, yeah.
So if you talk runway, it's 5 weeks into a 6-week runway where you want to finish as strong as you can. They're fourth now for points against, still 10th for opposition score per inside 50s, conceding the second fewest points from turnover and conceding the fifth most from clearances, which we always say it's a pretty good profile to have. If you can limit your scores from turnovers, you should be right, because scores from clearances isn't something that is sustainable for the opposition. So a little bit better, but yeah, across the whole season, it still won't. Their profile won't stack up to be like other premierships winners if they get there.
Really?
But in terms of saying, looking at what we say about the runway and trying to get your best footy played at this time of the year, this is probably the best the defence has looked in a 5-week period for them.
But they're going to go all out offense. They're like Melbourne. Melbourne's just going to try and outscore whoever they play against.
Brisbane coming good at the right time of the year, is it?
Happening again?
Goodness gracious. Is the hype justified or is it hyperbole? I know you're a Collingwood man. I need you to put that aside for a second, JB.
I'm very fair and balanced.
Bo McCreary should have been suspended for shoving Bailey McDonald into an umpire on Saturday night.
Hyperbole, but if he does it again, he should be, because that's what the rules are. That'll be his fourth offence.
That was egregious.
The shove on Bailey McDonald was
and
forceful.
it is forceful.
Oh, but he needs to.
He must have known the umpire was there, because the umpires before every throw up say, "This is my exit. This is where I'm going."
Not must have, should have known. And that's on him because players have been warned. But yeah, if he does it again, he needs to be suspended.
That umpire could have had a neck injury. I mean, if you're backing out of a contest like that, you're not expecting, because you've said this is where I need to be. You get an 85-kilo man coming into you at force. That's very dangerous.
I'm weight. They're not on the AFL.
Surprised that he got away with that.
Well, it's a fourth offence that gets you the suspension.
Fourth offence. God.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's a lot of offences.
It's a lot of offences. Christian, St Kilda won't get more than 10,000 people to Thursday night's clash with Gold Coast after their season was ended.
I don't know what St Kilda supporters are like, but you're not the first person to bring this up. It's probably already, we're only a little way through Monday, and I reckon you're about the fourth or fifth person to discuss how low the crowd is. I don't know. Hopefully St Kilda supporters just bandy together and go, let's just shut everyone up. Everyone thinks we're not going to turn up. Let's turn up and get it to 20,000.
Why would they?
Brad Hill's 300th game.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
Get to Marvel Stadium on Thursday night.
That's a great reason for it.
AA Smoky.
Yeah, it is. It's. We sort of said maybe they should bring the game time down to 6 o'clock and give a few school tickets out or something, because it's the other one of, we'd love to go, but it's not the most family friendly. It's probably the least family friendly time of any of the time slots.
Nothing on the line, nothing to gain.
But I'll say they'll get 18,000 there, because I just reckon people will rock up now that they've sort of been, the query has been put out there. Oh, St Kilda supporters won't go. St Kilda supporters won't go. Hopefully
I'll show everyone in the media. I'll go and turn up.
Hopefully enough people go out of spite that they get about an 18,000 crowd.
Oh, 18,000, closest to the pin. Here we go.
How many Gold Coast fans will travel down for it?
Hear those crickets? Closest to the pin.
What did you say?
18.
Oh,
1,000. People in the office that are generally saying 18.
I'll go 19.
1,000?
I'll play the game, yeah.
Oh, closest to the pin.
I didn't know it was...
I'm shooting this in. 12,000. Done.
I didn't know it was Brad Hill's 300th. Bit of a respect to a veteran.
Get to the game, Sainers. I know that they've not quite made finals.
Yeah, what for?
But a good servant to many clubs over many, many years, Brad Hill as well. So
yeah. I really think he's an AA Smoky, by the way.
To your point earlier about North Melbourne, North's pass mark has to be top 10 next season. No excuses. Injuries, no excuse.
That's what I was going to say. That's the one where we, and I'll give Jake another shout out. And he's always said injuries are a reason, not an excuse. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen with injury. They're still pretty light on in terms of 3 or 4 injuries to their top line midfielders, and they're a completely different team. So I will say, yeah, with a clean or an average bill of health, they should be making top 10, and the only thing that should stop them is a devastating run of injuries.
It's justified, yeah. It's a fail next season if they don't finish inside the top 10. Like they improved this year. That doesn't matter what their ladder position is. It's not based on that. It's based on their competitiveness within games, which we've spoken about. They're clearly a better team. They get more natural improvement with another pre-season in what is a young list. Hopefully they bolster it a bit in the trade period. We don't know what they're going to do.
Love to see another key defender there.
They're going to improve, and they're still in the bottom 6. They're in a really good spot at 13th and 14th with Gold Coast, because you're in the bottom 6 fixture bracket. They can't jump. If they win this weekend, they're not going to jump out of the bottom 6.
Correct.
So they get 3 of the bottom 5 teams twice next season. So if they do finish in the top 10, it's not all on the fixture, but a good team that is improving with another bottom 6 fixture should be making a wildcard round. Next season will be a fail if they don't get there.
Fair enough. Red time with you, JB and Coxie, on Wednesday. Looking forward to this week's episode. I think the big man might be a bit more relaxed, knowing that the minor premiership is sewn up.
Like he doesn't kick any goals in the studio. Well, he hasn't been in the studio this year, but...
I want to be on the end of one of his... bit of push and shove with Mark Keane.
He loves the argy-bargy, doesn't he? I'll ask him about that.
And what a great advertisement for the international game as well. An Irishman and a Yankee going at it, getting into it.
What do you reckon they were saying towards each other? Things you couldn't repeat, but...
Probably, but there'd be a few bits and pieces in there. Yeah, that was good stuff from him. Want to get his thoughts on the jumper as well.
Yeah, he's a big fan of the different Guernsey designs, Indigenous gather round styles, and the old retro kits. So I'll see if he likes the purple and green.
Does he keep his spot?
Yeah, I think so. Do you think he keeps his spot?
Yeah, I think he does too.
I'm biased. You can.
You're biased.
Yeah.
Darcy picked up an injury in the.
Did he really?
Waffle. Yeah.
What's he done?
Is that right?
Another calf?
Yeah, it was, I think, calf or hammy. And
it is a shame.
I don't know if it's a ruled out injury, but he didn't finish the game with an injury. So.
Is the hype justified or is it hyperbole? If Mason Cox wins a premiership with Fremantle, well, actually, I don't really have a question. I have a question, not a statement. What's his standing in the game?
Well, I was going to say it'd be one of the greatest stories in football history if he does get there.
I don't disagree.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most unique and inspirational and...
There's Jim Steins, Ty Canali, Mason Cox.
Yeah.
I think those
It'd be a great story, so we'll see what happens.
Love that. Well, you can catch that on YouTube or podcast every Wednesday, or you can also get ESPN Footy Central on Disney Plus and YouTube every Wednesday as well. Hurdy and Derm coming towards the pointy end of the season as well. Looking forward to the finals. I'll tell you what, it's getting closer. I know the wild card. It's
I know
whether it's finals, whether it's not. But
no, it shouldn't be called finals. That's the thing that the AFL I think stuffed up.
It's
still a top 8. We're just taking an extra week to find out who is 7th.
If it's not in September, it's not September. I think
that's what I think. I agree with that.
Looking forward to it. One more week of home and away action to come. Make sure you stay tuned to ESPN for all things footy. We'll speak to you in the next one.